Welcome to The World Today. I'm Waqas Majeed. Yesterday we spoke about Mr. Trump's new policy for the South Asian region, and today we're going to continue with that conversation and try to decipher what the US president meant, especially when he spoke about Pakistan. To get the conversation started, I'd like to introduce my guests in the studio. Joining me today, we have Brigadier Aftab Afzal, and along with him we have Qamar Cheema. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Sir, to begin with, I'd like to start off the conversation by pointing out that Pakistan had just completed an Operation Khyber 4, clearing militants out of FATA, and it was a very successful operation, and obviously the Americans know about it. Then, having seen Pakistan's efforts in fighting militancy and terrorism, they still point fingers at Pakistan and say that until and unless Pakistan doesn't get rid of safe havens, things are going to be very tough for us. So this continuous rhetoric of trying to put Pakistan down despite calling them a non-NATO ally and frontline state in the war of terror, what have we done to deserve it?
Actually, before we go on to the recent Trump's policy on Afghanistan, we would like to take the holistic view of the historic Pakistan-US relations. It has been like a bumpy road and in last 70 years, and has never been so comfortable, I think, as long as the Pakistan is concerned. And especially if we just review this after 1978 and 79, the American came in big way in Afghanistan, and Pakistan provided them all the support they wanted there. So they raised all these groups, all those jihadi groups, used them to the best interest in Afghanistan, and then they left the Afghanistan in a form of unfinished agenda. And from there, these groups like Taliban and other terrorist groups, they started coming up, and there was a mushroom growth in Afghanistan as long as the terrorist groups are concerned. Now, just after they left, then Pakistan was working with USA in Afghanistan at that time against Russia. So then there was no option for Pakistan, right, to get out of Afghanistan, whereas US could do. And then Pakistan very amicably took a lot of time and tried their best to resolve their issues and bring back normal situation in Afghanistan. Because any instability in Afghanistan directly affect us, because we are sharing a very long and porous border with Afghanistan. So this was having this in the background. Pakistan suffered a lot as long as the terrorism is concerned. Pakistan is the frontline state which was the victim of this terrorism. And initially the people had the opinion that this war in Pakistan, war of terrorism, is not the war of Pakistani people. It is basically we are fighting American war. So there was a lot of confusion for some time, till such time the situation started slipping out from our hands, and terrorists started occupying our land, especially in FATA. Then our forces swiftly reacted to the situation, and then this realization came with the Pakistani people that it is our war, it is no more American war. But somehow, directly or indirectly, in this whole issue of terrorism in Pakistan and Afghanistan, the American influence, American interference, and the American interest was quite visible time and again, with the varying gravity and its intensity. Now, coming over to the recent development, the Bush has recently given his policy.
Mr. Trump.
Mr. Trump has given his policy on Afghanistan. After the Trump administration had taken over in United States, so according to his own statement that he was studying Afghanistan To me, it looks that he has never studied the Afghanistan before, and no, he took his journal and revisor and went to Camp David, and they were discussing what to do in Afghanistan. What was new in there to understand in Afghanistan? After 79 to date, it is all what they are doing in Afghanistan. There is no other force. Pakistan boots cannot enter Afghanistan. No other countries there. It is only and only the American forces there, or
a few other troops from the NATO.
Allies, yes. Right? NATO forces. So in such like situation, the recent policy given by Mr. Trump, it has basically shown the American concerns, and their concerns is that we are spending a lot of dollars on Pakistan and on Afghanistan, and we are not getting results. Second, he has promised that after taking over, they will be pulling out from Afghanistan. But now, with his all advisor around him, they don't want to come out of Afghanistan, and they want to ingratiate the situation, whether it is in a good interest or a bad interest. They want to use this situation for whatever their agenda is, which is quite visible now. Second part of this new policy is total criticism on Pakistan, which is not understood. Why the Bush is so much after Pakistan and what Pakistan has done. Pakistan all the way for last 70 years has supported the policies of USA in this region. Whereas Pakistan had a number of options at number of times to shift, except one good thing remained throughout, and that was that we had good relations with China also. Now, one criticizing Pakistan, giving threat warnings to Pakistan to mend ways and not to harbor these terrorists, and calling them the agent of violence and so on and so on. I think it is very simple to understand that sitting in USA and making policy about Afghanistan is a different, and sitting in Pakistan or sitting right in Afghanistan, it is different. I think it would have been much better had President Bush consulted General McChrystal, who was the force commander here in Afghanistan. And his press conference and the last interview is quite evident of the fact that what was their worth in Afghanistan. Now with just 8,400 troops in Afghanistan, what type of victory the Bush is expecting, and which type of result was he expecting from this force? It is not understood. And the American operation in Afghanistan are over since 2014. They have not undertaken any major operation. They are just living in camps, garrisoned, and just sitting in self-defense. And now he has not even given his plan that whether he is going to send some more troops there or not. Even I tell you, he sent a division more troops here in Afghanistan. He can never win a war. And his advisors are time and again telling him that we cannot win this war. They have been telling this thing to Obama. Once Obama tenure was about to finish, Obama has realized fully that what is the worth of American policy there in Afghanistan, and he was trying his best that he should pull out from Afghanistan. But once Mr. Trump came, he want to use Afghanistan as a card.
But Mr. Trump was also very adamant. In fact, it was one of his election promises that he would bring back all the troops from Afghanistan. That is the interesting thing about the new policy that has come out. Cheema Saab, in your opinion, Mr. Trump taking a complete U-turn and about-face on this very crucial issue of having American soldiers in Afghanistan being killed and trillions of dollars being wasted. And he said it is a futile war. It's his own words, and now suddenly he says that things look very different from behind the desk in the Oval Office. How do we reconcile with these conflicting statements and attitude that the US president and the US government is now projecting?
Well, definitely he's right that looking things, sitting in Oval Office is actually different. He's right. Yes, he's spoken right. He's spoken truth this time. But I think what is most important to understand is that the tussle that goes on to the White House, that is most important to understand. Who lobbies more, who has more influence in the White House, that carries a lot of weightage in American policies. Although it's always around the world that who influences the executive, that matters a lot. When it comes to the American administration, we need to understand that the State Department and the Defense Department both give their opinions and share documents and make dossiers that what we have to do. Unfortunately, here in this situation, we see that the Pentagon is leading, or Pentagon has taken White House on its side, be it North Korea, be it Iran, be it Middle East, and be it South Asia now. So it's the Pentagon that is driving the policies. The State Department has lost influencing or has lost making good recommendations, or the recommendations which the Trump doesn't want. So actually they have lost at home. So the offices are not sharing good information. And the Trump has reduced State Department budget, increased the Defense Department budget, having private military contractors and thinking we can get everything. Now, one more thing I have realized from Trump's mindset is that he wants to have an incentive from everywhere and anywhere. How? For example, he's asking India, you are making billions from us, go and invest there, help us. He's asking his partners in Europe, you are making a lot of money, go and invest there. He's in Saudi Arabia, he got the money. So he's just thinking from that perspective and lens we have to see. So if anywhere there is a liability, if it is Pakistan, if it is anyone else, he's just pushing it aside or terming it aside. So he's thinking from a businessman's perspective. That is right. He's a businessman and he wants incentive from all this. State Department, what goes for when the State Department has failed to make recommendations that diplomacy is actually a very important tool at the moment in Afghanistan. They have failed to make it. And that is why the State Department they have a frustration in the mind of how we need to tackle the Trump and his administration. And with every day, you find a resignation from White House.
Cheema sir, one of the interesting million-dollar questions that we have been asking on our show many a time is that what exactly does the U.S. want in Afghanistan? That's the million-dollar question. What is it? Brigadier Saab, can you answer this question?
I tell you that it is according to their interest, what interest they have, which varies from time to time. And according to their interest and whatever the administration is there in Washington, they formulate such policy. And moreover, behind that interest, as Cheema Saab has said, that which is the lobby which is most active, and what that lobby want to do. And now rightly so, Mr. Trump is a business tycoon in USA, and he has lot of opposition within USA, and now is giving such policy. He should look inward first, right? Now it is no more the era of Obama. He cannot do these things now, and he cannot implement such policies. Pakistan is quite used to it. Pakistan has experienced many administrations in USA, and they are used to listen this, do more and more, and so on. And I think this is in series is again a do more type, but slightly with warning and threatening tone. But as long as its contents are concerned, its contents are no more different than what they have been earlier saying.
All right, so I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we just have to take a short break over here. We'll take a break. We'll be right back and continue the conversation. Stay with us. This is breaking news just in. The U.S. values Pakistan's role U.S. Ambassador David Hale meets Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Bajwa and says that the U.S. values Pakistan's role in the war against terrorism. Mr. David Hale, the U.S. Ambassador, has made this statement. The United States is seeking cooperation from Pakistan to resolve the Afghan issue. That is also another statement that has come out from the ambassador of the United States in Pakistan, Mr. David Hale, saying that they are seeking cooperation from Pakistan to find peace in Afghanistan. That peace in Afghanistan is important for Pakistan. The Chief of Army Staff has also reiterated that fact that we have been maintaining throughout these years. The U.S. is seeking cooperation from Pakistan to resolve the Afghan issue, but using a threatening tone might not be the best way to do that. Another statement that has come: we are not looking for any material or financial assistance from the USA, but trust, understanding, and an acknowledgement of our contributions. The Chief of Army Staff has made this statement. We have our correspondent Raza Khan with us online. Let's get the latest. Yes, Raza, can you tell us what the Chief of Army Staff has said regarding these statements, and especially after the U.S. policy for the region has been announced?
Yes, Waqas, Chief of Army Staff General Qamar Bajwa has categorically stated that we are not looking for any material or financial assistance from USA, but rather we need trust, understanding, and acknowledgement of our contributions. So this is the punchline of the message conveyed by our Army Chief to the U.S. Ambassador in the backdrop of the policy statement, the so-called policy statement by U.S. President Trump yesterday. And what that has done is it has opened up a Pandora's box, and a lot of anti-Pakistan forces have started blaming Pakistan for having safe havens and all that, but it was completely denied and negated by our Foreign Office and today by our Army Chief. And he categorically stated that Afghanistan is an important country for Pakistan, and we have done a lot towards that end for keeping peace and restoring peace in that country, and shall keep on doing our best, and not to appease anyone, pointing out that what Pakistan is doing is not to the appeasement of any world power, including USA, but in its own national interest and national policy. And similarly, he also pointed out that collaboration and synergy of effort between all stakeholders is key to success to bring this long-drawn war in Afghanistan to its logical conclusion. So Pakistan's national interest has been upheld by our Army Chief, General Qamar Bajwa, and he has categorically stated that Pakistan is not looking for any aid or any assistance, but rather acknowledgement of Pakistan's sacrifices, be that with the armed forces or the civilians during the last 70 years in the war against terrorism, and especially with regard to Afghanistan. So this meeting basically immediately taking place after the announcement of Mr. Trump's policy statement yesterday. It was an important meeting, and it was arranged so that Pakistan's strong and forthright response can be given to the U.S. authorities. And this is exactly what has happened today.
All right, thank you very much for the update. Raza Khan, our correspondent, reporting on the Chief of Army Staff's statement after the U.S. policy was declared for the South Asian region. The U.S. Ambassador David Hale has also said that they appreciate Pakistan's role in the fight against terrorism. And these are statements that have come out from the ISPR. The Chief of Army Staff has said that Pakistan does not need any aid, but an acknowledgement of the sacrifices that the Pakistani nation and the army have made in the fight against terrorism. And the ambassador from America has also said that the U.S. values Pakistan's role in fighting terrorism in the region. Welcome back, and now taking our conversation further. Brigadier Saab, we were talking about the US policy for the region, and a very timely release from the ISPR saying that the Chief of Army Staff statement saying that we don't need any help or material help rather. We would appreciate an acknowledgement of Pakistan's role in the fight against terrorism, and then the US ambassador also further saying that they appreciate Pakistan's role. But the fact of the matter is that the tone that the US president was using in that and categorically pointing towards Pakistan for safe havens, which we have been clearing out on a day-to-day basis. There have been several operations conducted in Pakistan to clear the territory of its of militants. And not only that, but it's also our stated policy that we do not support terrorism in any way or form, and that we will not allow Pakistan's soil to be used for terrorism against any other country. Now, these are stated facts that Pakistan has reiterated time and time again. Yet, why is it that that understanding is not forthcoming by the US, especially?
Yes, first of all, we can just see that Chief of Army Staff has given very good statement during his meeting with the US ambassador. I think this is what we want. We want to make the USA realize that we do not need anything from you. Whatever we have been doing in the line of war against terrorism, it is just Pakistan's own war, and we know how to fight. It is no more than 15 years that our forces are fighting. We are fighting with the terrorists. I think we are now more skilled and much better in our policy to handle this terrorism in Pakistan. As long as you are talking about Mr. Trump's this statement, recent statement and situation he has created for Pakistan and world over, which country that ever we talk good about? Name any one country. You start from the Syria, there is then Iran, then is Pakistan.
Well, India seems to be very close to him these days.
Yes, India, I will come on.
That's the only one, I suppose.
No, where Pakistan concerns is the policy that we were discussing, that in his policy was first their own interest and then warning to Pakistan, and then Pakistan concerns with regards to this type of policy is that we can never compromise on our issues of national security. We would never like that USA is giving some big role to India in Afghanistan, and Indians should realize this is the right time, that seeking any help and getting any big role from USA is not going to give them anything in Afghanistan, and one day they will be leaving Afghanistan like many others have left, right? It is just a matter of time, and their Indian people must realize that they are not going for a right option under the patronage of Mr. Trump. Second, Pakistan has a very, very serious concerns against the policy of recent policy of Bush, that what come may, we cannot accept Indians' leading role in Afghanistan. It directly affects us, and we will not accept it. So, since as we are discussing, Mr. Trump has a different personality, and his personality is the American people are talking about his personality, his statements, and they are fed up of this type of statements from Mr. Trump.
But let's just be fair, sir.
Time and again, my tongue is slipping and talking about Mr. Bush.
Because the policies are more or less the same.
Right? So, starting from the senior Bush to the junior Bush, then Obama, and now this Mr. Trump, I think do more was the basic rhetoric, but Mr. Trump has saying this no more in entirely a different way, because
it's the tone that matters.
It is tone and his personality. But now is the ambassador, as their ambassador has very quickly clear all those misunderstandings. They were looming around, And I think within the next 2 days you will see that you will get the good statements from the USA State Department also, that they have started recognizing the Pakistan role in on war on terrorism and the sacrifices of Pakistan. And even during his speech, Mr. Trump has also he has mentioned about Pakistan, that Pakistan was a victim this on terrorism. But the main issue is it is the interest, and the policy is interest driven in Afghanistan.
So
And that's all
unfortunately
about it.
to us, it seems that there's a lot of echoing India's rhetoric and sentiment, saying that Pakistan is harboring safe havens for terrorists. That is basically what India has been saying, and also threatening to declare Pakistan a state sponsor of terrorism, again, is what India has been hawking for. So why do the Americans not realize that Pakistan's interests cannot be put on the back burner or left to the roadside, and then they have to follow whatever the Americans or the Indians tell us to do? Why is it that they don't have this realization? Cheema Saab, can you were a student of international politics, so if you could shed some light on this conundrum.
Sure. Well, I think this is where the Americans need to understand. I think I was reading Secretary Tillerson's statement today and said that Pakistan need to forget India and need to discuss the regional role. And I think that this is not possible. What we have seen, the Modis in office, we have not seen any positive signal from Modi. And since then, we have seen what's situation going on in LOC. We are looking at how the situation is going on in Kashmir. So how can we forget India? Well, India is not in a mood to talk with us. It is Pakistan who has been telling the international community, we are ready to talk. India is not coming on table, and the world understand this. So we cannot forget India in this. But I think what Americans need to understand is that we have certain very legitimate concerns in Afghanistan. Legitimate concerns in case a state does not control its own territory. How come we can let that happen, that if you are not in a position to take care of yourself, and then we have our enemy in your territory, and then you openly are making things there, and then then there is instability there, and you asking that Pakistan should forget India and just look into our own territory. I think Pakistan has some more than 1,400 checkpoints on Pakistan-Afghanistan border, whereas Afghanistan is just having some 140 checkpoints on or border posts, you may say, on the border. So 2,400 kilometer border, just 140 checking points or the checkposts on the border. And then how can you manage that? Even if you are having a checkpost after 100 kilometer or 50 kilometer or 40 kilometer, how come you can manage your own border? So I think the Americans are not, they are not ready to have a fence on the border, because the Afghans do not agree on the border. So they just they want to create a hustle and bustle. And I think the statement that has come from Pakistan's Foreign Office is very tricky today even. And the last words of that statement is that if the world really understands that there are certain terrorist sanctuaries, then we should send back the Afghan refugees from Pakistan. Because we understand there are people must be hiding behind the garb, and they are hiding there. And this is what we have been saying, that there are 1.7 million Afghan refugees registered once, and then now they have ballooned to millions, not just 1.7, because this is the third generation that is being raised here, and fourth generation almost that is being raised there. So this is where I think if the world is ready to accommodate, and the US is ready to accommodate all those Afghan refugees who are in Pakistan, then we are ready to send them back and then just take care of them. So just do not blame us. As Bagedesa was mentioning, 140,000 soldiers couldn't do anything, and what other 4,000 soldiers will do in Afghanistan, giving role in India to in Afghanistan? I think there is a complete mess going on in Washington. I think the most unclear administration ever took White House is President Trump's administration, and they're just looking from economic perspective. And let me tell you, when Ashraf Ghani met with Trump, he said that we have a huge economic opportunity for you come and explore the natural resources, the rare earth metals which we have in Afghanistan. Now those rare earth metals, he told to the Trump, and Trump immediately called a meeting with the economic secretary that how can we have all that, and then there are companies like DynCorp and other, they are approaching White House with the support of Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner, who is very close to the president, and they're just making a plan that how we can have that natural sources, our $1 trillion. So let me tell you, they will have something from Afghanistan in terms of economic assistance, and Trump will claim after some time that it is Donald Trump who has extracted millions and billions from Afghanistan in terms of rare earth metals. He will claim this. You would see this is just a matter of time, and then you will see that. And one more disturbing statement from, I read a full speech of President Trump yesterday, and he said that we will wait for the time and see that how far the Afghan administration can handle its affairs. And I foresee that if the political administration is not in a position to resolve its matters, and there is a conflict going on in unity government, there is likely possibility these American trained generals in Kabul may take over after some time if the political administration fails. So there is a probability of that. But as Trump said yesterday, that we are not in for a nation building in Afghanistan. We are just to help you to...
No, they said he said that we are just there to kill terrorists.
Yeah.
There seems to be no other
Yeah.
agenda.
Although they said that we are for nation building, so just they're backtracking what they've been doing, and their job, they know that we are good at uninstalling governments. They were good in Yemen, not Yemen, but in Syria, they helped a lot, in Libya, then Iraq and Afghanistan. But to raise societies and to raise nations is a very tough task, and this is not what they have understood so far.
Why is there no focus on diplomatic solutions or a diplomatic approach towards resolving the Afghan imbroglio, as it has come to be known? Why can't we have the world powers coax the Afghan government and the Taliban to sit on the negotiating table and come to an amicable solution? Why is that not being followed as the policy? Why is it that you have to spend more in terms of military or have more troops on the ground rather than trying to push for a diplomatic solution? Brigadier Saab, if you'd like to please answer.
I think if the Americans are interested, whenever they are interested, they can put the things right very quickly. For them, it is not a problem. Giving this policy, just imagine, they have not given any package for Afghanistan. So how will they win the war? They just want to give a role to India, that India will develop Afghanistan, and India will normalize situation in Afghanistan. So I don't understand that what they want to get out of this Afghanistan through this policy. And as long as this economic some interest is concerned, according to Cheema Saab assessment, Hitler during his peak time used to teach his general the economics of war. And once they were advancing toward Russia, so they started moving toward the oil fields and left their actual axis of advance. And the world has seen their very unfortunate defeat. So the presidents, they think in a very, very different way. And if the president is a very hardcore businessman, and that too a businessman, a property, a businessman, I think it is beyond his, I think, understanding how to handle this Afghanistan. So I am at least satisfied with one aspect that the president has said that he has discussed all with his generals. And I have a lot of confidence on Pentagon, right, that they are not Trumps. They are generals, right?
All right, sir. Moving on, sir. One of the things that has been said repeatedly by many quarters is that if the U.S. was to completely withdraw from Afghanistan, it would create a disastrous situation. So if you could just clarify that, why would it be, or how would it be a disastrous situation if the U.S. was to pull out of Afghanistan? What is the disaster that is looming in the future if they pull out?
I think if they just pull out in such kind of a situation, I think then
What we saw in Iraq.
yeah, yes, and I think this was his mentioned in his speech that we just don't want to repeat what we did in Iraq, and then we had a huge IS that emerged out of from Middle Syria and Iraq, they
And
just
now
took-
it's also making inroads into Afghanistan.
They have
IS is a very major concern, not just for Americans, but it is a major concern for Pakistan as well. Not just Pakistan, but every single country in the region is concerned about that.
You are right. But I think what is most important about IS is that IS is losing ground in Middle East, but they are gaining ground in Afghanistan. And this is where the Iranians are troubled. This is where the Iranians are supporting Taliban, and this is where the Americans cannot say anything to Iran on if the Taliban are being supported. This is where the Russians feel troubled, that if that whom we will have to fight with IS, the government in Kabul that is not capable even to protect themselves. So whom should we have? So they're arming Taliban just to protect themselves as well, because they know that if there is a suicide attack just 70 kilometers away from Iran's border inside Afghanistan, and then there is a 70 kilometers attack on the western border of Iran in Iraq, and then they are squeezed by the IS forces or IS elements around their borders. So that is why Iranians are very much worried on that, and that is why they are supporting the Taliban, and the world knows this. But here, what we need to understand is that IS has got a huge ground in Afghanistan, and that ground has come at the cost. And the cost is that the Taliban, I find a situation where they come a situation where the Afghan government may need help of the Taliban to fight with IS. There's probability about when we find a chaos. I think what happened in Syria, where there was IS, where there were rebels, and there was the Syrian government was fighting, and who was fighting with whom, no one knows. I find that if the Americans are no more on the ground, because so far Americans have taken a little responsibility to fight with IS hideouts. That is why they dropped mob. On IS hideouts. So I think what that needs to be done is that strong capabilities needed at Kabul. And I think one of the statement that came from Trump is that take ownership. The government in Kabul is not taking ownership, and we have seen that there is skirmishes between Gulbuddin Hikmatyar is fencing with the governor of I think Helmand or something. I forgot the name of the governor whom he had fencing, because there was an Jamaat Islami's government in there, and Gulbuddin Hikmatyar is at center, and so there is a lot of trouble within going on, that who is to get what, and the institutions are not built. Election commission is not that built. We see corruption in Afghanistan, and Afghanistan cannot be like a baby to whom the word is raising, and it is very dear to everyone, and it is not responding, not taking ownership. It cannot be like that. And then within armed forces in Afghanistan, we find there is a huge trouble. There are many who are supporting Taliban. There is a probability that, according to some number, out of 10, 6 to 7 are working for Taliban, and that is a very huge and troubling figure. So, the Americans cannot pull out in such kind of a situation. Either the IS will come in, or the external actors will start supporting Taliban just to again create a trouble for the government of Kabul, or to protect themselves, because the government in Kabul is not able enough. So all what I understand is that until and unless Taliban being the part of the fabric of Afghanistan,
A political solution
do not
needs to be
get an
found.
access to Kabul, or do not get an access to the power sharing formula, there is no solution. There is no military solution in Afghanistan. The world has realized this in last 70 years.
But that doesn't, that kind of belies the actions that the US government is now taking. Instead of sending in more troops and further exacerbating the situation, why is the political solution not being talked about at all?
I think this is what I've mentioned earlier, that the Pentagon has taken over in White House. That matters a lot. There is a lot of jealousy when the diplomats or the officers of the different ministries, they deal in, they want their position to be acknowledged, their perspective to be taken. And one more thing, I think there is a lobby within Washington, and that lobby is actually the lobby that is being supported by the retired generals, and that has helped Donald Trump a lot. And that lobby, they have a huge private contractors. They have the firms, actually, they want that the people to be taken on board by the American government, to be sent for Afghanistan, so that there is no American soldier on the ground, but private contractors are there, and they will make billions from Pentagon. So there is a huge economy going on, and I think, and who will make money out of it? I think the Trump and his son-in-law and many other people who will be making money in different ways, not directly maybe, but getting incentives from some other way. So I think, and they will be in a way that we are not sending soldiers in Afghanistan. These are the contractors, and a contractor, if dies, he dies for his own, because he was taken because of his. He was hired for so and so number, and we paid him, and the job is done. So I think the State Department need to look at very carefully. And there was recently a poll in State Department where some 45%, they took a poll from about 45% of the members of the State Department, and there was a huge frustration among them that what we have. And even I have met certain diplomats here in Islamabad, and when we meet with them and have a discussion with them, they find really uncomfortable, and they even, they cannot even answer, or they say that, and they're silent, and they're looking, and they're thinking, and yeah, this is happening, and they can't say anything because they're representing the government, and they're very in such kind of a situation. So let's see what happens. But I think the days in Afghanistan for everyone are not good, even for the Afghans themselves.
Very, very sad situation, sir. But Brigadier Saab, in your opinion, the kind of tone that the US government or Mr. Trump has taken towards Pakistan, do you think that's going to win him support? Because what they want is unquestioned cooperation, ignoring Pakistan's interests completely. So what kind of a response will they expect?
No, this policy that he has defined, it is just very dictating policy. There is no room for diplomatic initiatives to be pursued. And there is it is I think in last 70 years since the creation of Pakistan, such a hard type of language has not been used by a president of the United States of America. Anyway, if we just see, after the Second World War, Japan was totally destroyed and it was captured. But then the Americans and the Allies, they allow them to rebuild, right, and develop. And then they have been getting better benefit from Japan also for such a long time, over about 47 years. But I think Mr. Trump has come with that idea in his mind, that we have probably lost so much of dollars in Afghanistan, and how to get those dollars back in form of some business, or I think some there are some gold mines with open mouth waiting for them to come. And I think it is totally, this policy is full of confusion, and it is spread a lot of misunderstanding between a very, very effective partnership on war and terrorism between Pakistan and USA. And this is not going to stop here, because the Pakistan in this region has a very strong relation and very historic relation with China. And now the China is coming in a very big way in Pakistan and bringing the CPEC. So giving this type of policy, threat, statement, while one side we are engaged with USA, on the other side we are engaged with China. So Pakistan has to keep a balance in that. And definitely one side we are getting threats, and from other side we are getting CPEC and some good things, that the Pakistan would definitely draw the maximum benefit. And whatever Mr. Trump is saying time and again that we have given billions of dollars to Pakistan, they have given these dollars for their own interest and against the services that the Pakistan has provided to United States on war and terrorism. They have not given us any special aid, that otherwise the Pakistan would have been a very developed country if those billions of dollars were had come here.
Absolutely.
Right? Those all were used in Afghanistan by them. Sometimes they were used to provide the supportive services to them. Sometimes this was the role of the Pakistan Army that was in FATA and that type of expenditure. But I am very clear that whatever the money they have given it to Pakistan, that money was for their own interest and that was used for their own interest. And in that money, it was also the organization like Blackwater has been working, and they have been pursuing their own agendas, and they want to make Pakistan also like Afghanistan, that there should be totally uncertainty. I have also been meeting with many responsible people of the United States, and it was very difficult to make them realize that Pakistan is entirely different than Afghanistan. It's not Afghanistan, right? We have totally a different governance system here. We have a very strong armed forces, and we are a nuclear nation.
Absolutely,
right?
sir.
It is very difficult to make them understand.
Because we're out of time, but thank you very much for taking out the time and speaking your mind on the show. Well, you heard the conversation, and in conclusion, we'd like to say that the only way forward for a peaceful world is diplomatically and not militarily. And we hope that the powers that be realize it, that the way to move forward is by talking through our problems, and that's the only way. With that hope and on that note, it's goodbye.